So this video is about the ideology or the term neoliberalism and how it shapes the urban condition. The key reference for this video is by Professors Brenner and Theodore, who published this article in 2005 in the journal City, and it's called Neoliberalism and the Urban Condition. And I included the full reference for you to read at your own leisure in detail. So first of all, and briefly, just some history that about how neoliberalism paved the way and how it was paved for neoliberalism to shape urban condition. Before I go in and describe the term and what it means. So Brenner and Theodore explained how the term restructuring became popular in the 1980s and the 1990s to describe an unrestrained period in political, economic, and urban transformation of global urban systems. During this period, researchers used lots of categories and to describe and to theorize and conceptualize the ongoing construction and deconstruction of urban spaces, including terms like deindustrialization, reindustrialization, global city formation, internationalization, informalization, gentrification, and sociospatial polarization. Through these categories and many others, urban theorists were able to report on empirical studies of ongoing urban transformation happening in North America and globally. Then in early 2000s, these concepts stayed, but they were complemented by references to neoliberalism. And these were viewed as a key, neoliberalism was viewed as a key describer of contemporary urban condition. In other words, scholars or academics started using terms like neoliberalism, neoliberal, neoliberalized, and neoliberalization to interpret how urban restructuring was being shaped, particularly in North American cities. So now let's go and talk about what neoliberalism means. So authors Brenner and Theodore explained that neoliberalism as a concept has been widely used to characterize the resurgence of market-based institutional shifts and policy realignments across the world economies post-1980s. From a technical term, neoliberalism is defined as a set of doctrines regarding the appropriate framework for economic regulation. And this is mentioned under page 102 of their article. However, scholars also use the term to describe the political, organizational, and ideological reorganization of capitalism, which has been institutionalized through the free market doctrines. Historically, neoliberalism was investigated because of reference to national regulatory trends, like, for example, associations with President Reagan and what they call Reaganism. And also of the US, obviously, and also Thatcher or Thatcherism in the UK, and as a prime minister of the UK at the time, and their policies and ideologies, as well as what they call supranational institutional realignments. That is supranational, looking outside of just the national boundaries, such as the role of the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund in imposing structural adjustment programs on developing countries. However, since the 1990s, there has been an increase in the links between neoliberalism and how it shapes the urban condition through its underlying political, economic dynamics and geographies of influence from the global to local scales. So after I just explained to you what neoliberalism means, let's turn now and talk about how does neoliberalism function. There are 6 key conclusions that Brenner and Theodore put in their article to explain how neoliberalism functions in general. First, neoliberalism is a process of market-driven social and spatial transformations rather than a fixed end state or a condition. It is always articulated through historically and geographically specific strategies characterized by transformation in institutions and re-articulation of ideology. It depends on the state powers, active mobilization, by creating complex reconstitution of state economy relations. So institutions are actively mobilized to promote market-based regulatory arrangements. Neoliberalization leads to path-dependent outcomes in how projects collide with regulations, in turn causing institutional reorganization. Fifth, neoliberalization is heavily contested by social forces, trying to preserve against unfettered capital accumulation. Neoliberalization also amplifies regulatory failure because projects with that ideology contradict stable economy, political regulation, and social cohesion, and instead they undermine them by undermining the economic, institutional, and geographical preconditions of these. And the final key point is that neoliberalism and how it functions continues to evolve, so any failures it causes have not resulted in abandoning its ideology or these processes. It has instead reinvented itself politically, organizationally, spatially, alongside its consequential social dysfunction. So how does neoliberalism shape the urban condition? Brenner Theodore attempted to link the several theoretical issues I just explained with contemporary urban transformations through three main conceptualizations, which I listed here, which are, and we can discuss each one of them in the next slides. So first of all, neoliberalism is viewed as a framework that structures the governance of contemporary urban development in powerful ways. For example, it defines the character of what is considered appropriate choices. It limits democratic participation in political life. It spreads dissent and any opposition mobilization, and it spreads new ideological visions of social and moral order in the city. And in all these cases, what neoliberalism does is that it reconstitutes the territory of political and economic governance and social struggle in the entire urban area as it triggers elite strategizing and resistance in key regulatory areas like economic development, environmental policies, and transportation policies, among others. There are several examples, just so you are aware, that the authors Brenner and Theodore gave in regards to this first point, and you can go through them in the article as well. So you could see from these listed ways of how neoliberalism shapes, the urban condition and acts as acting as a framework of urban governance. You could see how neoliberalization patterns are being urbanized beyond and through a complex interplay between global, national, and local political economic rearrangements. Second, neoliberalism is viewed as a spatially selective political strategy in the ways it shapes the urban condition. And because of that, neoliberalization projects are reorganizing existing spatial configurations in highly place and scale-specific ways within national, regional, and local contexts. And what the examples for, Theodore and Brenner gave in their article is a link between neoliberalization strategies and urban, regional, socio-spatial restructuring, meaning spatial organization is a base. It all at once, it is a base, an arena, and a mechanism to mobilize neoliberal political strategies. And finally, neoliberalism is also viewed as a form of discourse, ideology, and representation in the way it shapes contemporary urban development by how it exerts dominant and hegemonic influence on urban governments. And again, Brenner and Theodore illustrated how and explained that how urban neoliberalism transforms dominant political narratives on which the public understand the limits and possibilities of the urban experience, whether through interlocal competitiveness, economic efficiency, urban business making process, urban disorder, and other discourses used. These present an ideal form of neoliberal utopia, as they called it, where social relations get to be governed by uncontrolled competition and exchange. So I hope this video gave you an idea about what neoliberalism is, how it functions, and also how it shapes the urban condition for